I don't want you showing up to the movie theater. But of course, at the toned down red carpet event in Hollywood last weekend, where they did the premiere, but didn't allow anyone to actually talk to Rachel Zegler and ask her any questions because they were so frightened of her putting her foot in her mouth once again, you had to wonder, is this going to improve the measly box office projections that this movie currently sits at?
If you're somehow still holding out hope that the live-action Snow White remake will be good, let me just tell you, you'd be better off biting into a poison apple and waiting for true love's kiss to come save you or put you out of your misery, whichever comes first.
Disney sought to capture the modern audience, but the result has been disastrous. Empty theaters, underwhelming ticket sales, and a brand that seems to have alienated its core fan base. For the past 2 years, Disney has been attempting to modernize its classic content, but in doing so, it has unintentionally distanced itself from the very audience that helped build its empire. Take, for example, the controversy surrounding Rachel Zegler's Snow White film. Initially, leaked set photos raised doubts, showing a Snow White that barely resembled the iconic character fans loved. Then, things got worse when the lead actress herself mocked the original 1937 film, calling the prince a stalker, claiming the story was outdated, and even making disparaging remarks toward people with opposing political views, encouraging them not to watch the movie. This wasn't just poor marketing, it was a textbook case of self-sabotage. In response, Disney attempted damage control, downplaying the backlash and avoiding any real interviews. A last-minute marketing blitz was launched in hopes of salvaging the situation. But as opening night arrived, it became clear that none of it worked. Reports from across the country painted a grim picture. Theaters, often prime IMAX locations, were completely empty. Prime-time weekend showings had only a handful of seats filled, and even Disney's flagship theaters couldn't pack their rows. Cities like Washington, D.C., Utah, Montreal, Virginia, and Florida all showed the same bleak reality. No one was showing up. This isn't a handful of isolated cases either. Social media was flooded with photos of empty theaters, blue seats wide open at every showing. At this rate, Snow White is shaping up to be one of the biggest box office flops in recent history. Even with Disney's frantic last-ditch marketing effort, the projections for the opening weekend remain dismal. Some analysts estimate it could make around $55 million, a figure far below that of The Little Mermaid's opening, another movie that was already seen as a failure. So what went wrong? Disney ignored its loyal audience. They took a beloved classic, fundamentally altered everything that made it unique, and handed the reins to someone who had little regard for the film's legacy, its fans, or its iconic status. And now they're facing the fallout. This serves as a stark warning for Disney and its future live-action remakes. Modernizing classics for the sake of political correctness and ideological trends might not be the winning strategy after all.
I literally can't believe it. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it! This, I thought for sure the reviews for Disney's Snow White, hashtag Free Palestine, Orange Man Bad Zegler, would be 90s and 95s across the board. But this is the, I believe, lowest rated reviewed live-action remake in Disney history.
Snow White is out, and the reviewers, oh no, they hate the thing. Only 46% of people think it's above 5.
Weird.
And I have to say, I'm a bit surprised. I fully expected the critics to absolutely love the modernized femme remake that this is. And it is. Yes, it's debuted with one of the worst Rotten Tomato scores for any live-action Disney remake. It isn't just despised on Rotten Tomatoes, but IMDb gives it a 2.1 out of 10, and Google reviews a 1.4.
So, the ticket sales for Snow White aren't doing too well. At all. As a matter of fact, they look like the ticket sales I saw for Captain Marvel. I was one of the people in the empty theaters. I could have swore I posted a picture back then.
Everybody claiming this is the best live-action remake in years is absolutely full of shit. Look, it's no secret, we've been talking about this for a long time, you and I. But the fact of the matter is that I still had to sit through it, so I was hoping it would be a lot better than it was, as opposed to what actually happened, which was almost 2 hours of me wanting to crawl out of my own skin in the middle of the movie theater.
To talk. Fantastic. Obviously, she's very attractive, very cute, but her views, her eliteness, her like, I know what's right and you don't, and now you want to apologize, bro. This is how the world works when you get on social media.
A Broadway actress who issued a post saying, F Biden supporters. May Biden or Kamala never have a moment's peace. That person would be fired so fast it would make your head spin. They wouldn't last one more minute in any Hollywood role. This is truly like, she has to go. I'm sorry, Disney. She has to go. And you're going to put out a Disney film with Snow White, a beloved American character, with a woman who hates more than half the country, the half that just elected Donald Trump. This is an incredible pivot point right now. We'll see which way the woke Disney decides to go.
Pay your writers, pay your actors. I have residual checks that would shock you.
Rachel Zegler has made a stunning about-face, walking back her controversial political comments, including her disparaging remarks about Trump voters, and pledging to refrain from any further political rants. However, industry insiders claim that it might be too little, too late. Disney executives are reportedly done with the Snow White star, quietly distancing themselves after months of backlash and controversy. The whispers in Hollywood are growing louder. Zegler's actions may have derailed a $200 million production, and her career could now be hanging by a thread. Zegler's inflammatory comments and behavior surrounding the Snow White remake only added fuel to the fire of an already contentious film. Her mockery of the original Snow White, along with her political outbursts, alienated a significant portion of the audience, a mistake Disney could not afford, especially with such a massive investment on the line. Now, as the Snow White remake flounders at the box office and the negative press continues to mount, Zegler is scrambling to salvage her reputation. But can she undo the damage she's done? Is this a last-ditch attempt to save face? Or is this the beginning of the end for a star who seemed destined for stardom? With the scandal continuing to escalate and Disney reportedly distancing themselves, the big question is, can Zegler recover from this, or is her time in the Hollywood spotlight already over? The downfall of Snow White might not be the only tragedy unfolding. Rachel Zegler's Hollywood fairy tale could be coming to a close as well.
Your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
Disney, the ultimate storyteller, now finds itself caught in a narrative it never saw coming. At the center of this chaos is Rachel Zegler, the rising star chosen to breathe new life into Snow White. Today we'll break down what went wrong, why fans are so upset, and whether Disney can turn things around before it's too late. Let's dive in. When Rachel Zegler was cast as Snow White, it was seen as a milestone, a Latina actress taking on one of Disney's most iconic roles. Some hailed it as long overdue progress, while others were skeptical, accusing Disney of chasing trends instead of honoring the original. For fans of the 1937 classic, it was hard to reconcile this bold new direction with the nostalgic fairy tale they had grown up loving. Things took a turn when Zegler described the original Snow White as outdated, and dismissed the character's love story as weird. She promised to offer a modern version of Snow White, one that was independent and led her own journey, without the prince or romance. While some cheered her on, others felt that Disney was stripping the heart out of the story just to follow the latest trend. To many, Snow White wasn't just about romance. It was about magic, hope, and the timeless storytelling that made Disney a household name. Then came more changes. Rumors that the Seven Dwarfs would be completely reimagined added fuel to the fire. Fans who embraced live-action remakes like Cinderella began to feel like this wasn't about updating a classic, but rather rewriting it entirely. Suddenly, Snow White wasn't just a remake. It became a battleground for everything people love or loathe about Disney's new direction. Rachel Zegler's rise from casting controversy to full-blown lightning rod took an even sharper turn when she waded into political discourse after Donald Trump's re-election. She posted a fiery Instagram story targeting not just the former president, but his supporters as well. Her blunt statement, "Trump and his supporters will never know peace," went viral almost instantly, sparking outrage across the political spectrum. The fallout was swift and messy. Conservatives slammed her comments as an attack on millions of Americans, many of whom were part of Disney's core audience. Hashtags like #BoycottSnowWhite exploded online, with calls for her removal from the role. Even moderates who weren't fans of Trump found her tone unsettling, seeing it as just another example of the divisive rhetoric that many were growing weary of. Progressives were split. Some applauded her boldness, while others questioned whether such a charged statement did more harm than good. Now, Disney finds itself in the midst of a perfect storm of controversy. With a growing backlash and negative press, the question remains: can they turn this around, or has the Snow White remake become a cautionary tale for how not to navigate the delicate balance of nostalgia, modernity, and the ever-divisive world of politics?
Snow White actress Rachel Zegler only a few days ago decided to tell every single person that had a different political opinion than her,
"May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace."
Every time we check in on Disney's upcoming Snow White remake, somehow things get even worse than they were before.
This woman thinks that, the half of America, more than half of America, shouldn't live in peace.
Hello, Disney, you're going to have to redo your film again, because this woman is a pig.
There are growing calls tonight for Disney to fire Rachel Zegler, the star of its widely anticipated Snow White remake. It's because of an anti-Donald Trump post she made after the election, writing, quoting here, "May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace." Ziegler is now apologizing. She writes in a new post, let my emotions get the best of me, and I am sorry, contributed to the negative discourse.
But apparently telling Rachel Zegler to behave normally just isn't an option either. So the other day, in response to the presidential election, Zegler had a very public meltdown on her Instagram stories. She wrote, quote, "F you, Donald Trump." And she proceeded to insult the 75 million Americans who voted for him. Quote, "I find myself speechless in the midst of this. Another 4 years of hatred, leading us towards a world I do not want to live in."
Rachel Zegler followed up her earlier fiery political comments with another controversial post, accusing Trump supporters of enabling harm and blaming Elon Musk's former Twitter for helping Trump's re-election. This created a massive PR headache for Disney, a company that has long prided itself on maintaining political neutrality to appeal to families across the spectrum. Zegler's comments dragged them into a firestorm they didn't ask for, and it quickly became clear they had no idea how to manage the fallout. Disney's silence was deafening. Unlike previous controversies, such as the firing of Gina Carano for far less inflammatory social media posts, Disney took no immediate action against Zegler. The double standard didn't go unnoticed. Carano was let go within days, while Zegler faced no consequences, leading to accusations of hypocrisy and bias. But this wasn't the first time Zegler's outspoken nature had gotten her into hot water. She had previously criticized West Side Story's marketing, adding to the perception that she had a habit of stirring the pot. For some, her unfiltered personality was refreshing, but for others it was exhausting. Either way, she became a polarizing figure, one who always seemed to find herself at the center of controversy. By the time Zegler issued her apology, the damage was already done. Her attempt at damage control came across as insincere and hollow, more like a PR maneuver than a genuine effort to make amends. Instead of easing tensions, her apology only made things worse. It was widely seen as robotic and calculated, with many accusing her of deflecting blame and framing herself as the victim. Social media quickly erupted, and memes flooded Twitter comparing her statement to past celebrity apologies, which were often handled with more humility and authenticity. Fans also accused Disney of prioritizing optics over accountability. The carefully crafted apology gave the impression that it was a PR response designed to manage the fallout without addressing the deeper issues. This misstep was just another in a long list of PR blunders by Disney in recent years, highlighting how public expectations for celebrity apologies have shifted. Audiences now crave authenticity and vulnerability, and Zegler's polished statement only deepened the divide between her and the fans she hoped to win back. But the fallout from Rachel Zegler's controversies didn't just hurt her public image. It spilled over onto the entire Snow White project, turning it into a symbol of Disney's struggles to connect with its audience. Even before Zegler's remarks, the live-action remake was on shaky ground, with fans divided over its creative choices. After the backlash, the film became a lightning rod for boycotts, criticism, and skepticism from all corners. The trouble began early when the teaser trailer dropped, receiving over 1.3 million dislikes on YouTube. Fans flooded the comments, criticizing everything from the film's visual effects to its lack of connection to the original. Instead of generating excitement, the trailer fueled frustration, with many feeling it was yet another sign of Disney losing touch with its core audience. One of the most contentious changes was the reimagining of the Seven Dwarfs as a diverse group of magical companions. This move came after actor Peter Dinklage criticized the original story's portrayal of dwarfism, but it backfired. Advocates for the dwarfism community accused Disney of erasing opportunities for actors with dwarfism, while fans of the original story felt the whimsy and charm of the dwarves had been stripped away in favor of unnecessary reinvention. Behind the scenes, things weren't much better. Reports of costly reshoots, delays, and creative disagreements painted a picture of a production in chaos. Insiders suggested that Disney was scrambling to salvage the project, pouring millions into reworking scenes in a desperate attempt to avoid a flop. With a massive $200 million budget, Snow White would need to pull in at least $600 million just to break even, a daunting task, especially with mounting calls for boycotts. The backlash reflects a larger trend. Fans are losing patience with Disney's live-action remakes. While films like Cinderella and The Jungle Book found a balance between honoring the originals and offering fresh takes, others like The Lion King and Mulan have been criticized for feeling hollow and overly calculated. Disney's struggles with Snow White are emblematic of the challenges the company now faces in trying to capture the magic of its past while navigating the demands of a modern, increasingly skeptical audience.
Basically, anyone who voted for him posting on her Instagram that there'll be another 4 years of hatred leaning us towards a world I don't want to live in, claiming that it's leading us towards a world that will be hard to raise my daughter in. And she went even further, warning followers to avoid using Elon Musk's X platform because he supported Donald Trump. Look, she did later apologize for her comments, but it's certainly not the smartest marketing move ahead of this film.
No, I mean, it's a great strategy, putting out your leading actress to go ahead and piss off half of the American population and potentially causing a huge backlash from it.
Apparently someone at Disney made a call. Somebody at Disney probably made a call to Rachel Zegler and said, hey, you need to shut your fucking mouth because you are destroying this movie and our reputation when we can't afford this.
She tried to make Snow White really woke, and there was a huge backlash from that. Well, unsurprising.
Career off of just criticizing things. She's always aggrieved about something. They agree with you on this issue. Find something else to criticize, please.
Because of Ziegler and because of her hideous poison and the poison of wokeism that sort of like bled through the project. Look at this.
That is a red flag, just mentally, from a mindset point of view. I would love to live in this world, even if Kamala Harris...
They will fire Gina Carano just for being conservative and sharing conservative values, but then you have Rachel
Zegler also wrote, there is a deep, deep sickness in this country that is shown in the sheer amount of people who showed up for this man who threatens our democracy.
Endorsements that anyone actually cares what they have to say about this stuff, because they shouldn't. Like, we don't need to hear from actors and artists about who your political candidate should be. You know, it's you're not qualified to have opinions on this stuff, and you shouldn't be trying to like direct people to vote a certain way. ultimately, for these people, they're there to entertain us. They're not there to lead us.
I think she's an idiot. She's one of the most unlikable people in Hollywood, and that speaks volumes because there's a lot of unlikable people in Hollywood. But she took it to a whole different level. And you are working for Disney. You're working for a company that is trying to cater to, well, should be anyway, trying to cater to families. Now you have this landslide election from President Trump, and there was no way this was going to go over well.
They're talking about all the other major Disney studio productions that are coming out. This is what's coming in. They're telling this to analysts and shareholders. And for the second time in a row, they have not mentioned the live-action remake of the movie that put the Disney company on the frickin' map in 1937. This is just... I don't think this movie's going to happen.
Snow White seems to be falling into the category of being a corporate response to cultural trends rather than a genuine attempt at storytelling. As the release date approaches, Disney faces an uphill battle to reverse the growing negativity. The controversy surrounding Snow White is shifting from being about one film to reflecting a bigger issue with Disney's recent creative choices. The company is seen as alienating lifelong fans by chasing modern updates without understanding why these classic stories resonated in the first place. Disney risks losing the magic that once connected it with its audience, and whether Snow White can salvage the situation remains uncertain. However, for many fans, it's a sign that Disney needs to do some serious soul-searching. The Snow White controversy isn't just a one-off. It's part of a larger problem. For decades, Disney built its empire on timeless stories that united audiences, like Cinderella and The Lion King. These classics worked because they tapped into universal themes of love, hope, and perseverance without hitting viewers over the head with a message. But more recently, fans have expressed that Disney seems to have lost its touch. The company has swapped out the magic of timeless stories in favor of tales that seem more focused on making a point rather than connecting with audiences. The live-action Snow White is a prime example. By reimagining Snow White as a leader who doesn't need love or community, Disney alienated fans who cherished the innocence and charm of the original. While modernizing characters can work when done thoughtfully, critics argue that Disney's recent remakes often feel forced, shoehorning contemporary ideas into classic stories instead of allowing them to evolve naturally. Rather than creating new, strong characters with original stories, Disney continues to rework old favorites, and it's not always succeeding. Fans often point to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse as an example of how to do it right. Miles Morales isn't just a rehash of Peter Parker. He's his own character with a rich backstory and a fresh perspective on the Spider-Man legacy. Audiences loved him because his story felt authentic, not like a box was being checked. This, critics argue, is the difference that Disney has missed with Snow White. The distinction between telling a meaningful story and merely making a statement for the sake of it. This disconnect is hitting Disney where it hurts. The bottom line: films like The Little Mermaid and Peter Pan and Wendy haven't lived up to the box office expectations, with many fans saying these remakes feel uninspired. Even Disney theme parks are seeing fewer visitors, with some complaining that the magic no longer feels family-friendly. The biggest issue Disney faces might be trust. Fans no longer feel that the company is listening to what they love. Instead, it feels like Disney is chasing trends, leaving behind the heart and soul that made it beloved in the first place. The Snow White controversy has only put this frustration under a magnifying glass, showing just how much work Disney must do to win back its audience. Fans aren't just looking for nostalgia. They want stories that feel as genuine and magical as they did when they first fell in love with Disney. Rachel Zegler's once promising career is quickly unraveling. What should have been her breakout role in Snow White has become a public relations disaster, threatening her future in Hollywood. Zegler, who was celebrated for her performance in West Side Story, now finds herself at the center of a cultural firestorm that has alienated fans, industry insiders, and even those who initially supported her rise. The real question now isn't whether she'll bounce back, but whether Hollywood will even be willing to take a risk on her. Zegler's casting in Snow White was supposed to establish her as a household name, but her public comments about the original film, calling it outdated and dismissing the love story, sparked a backlash that won't fade. Her outspoken political views, especially on social media, have only intensified the divide. Her criticisms of Trump supporters and increasingly combative rhetoric turned her from a rising star into a polarizing figure almost overnight. Audiences were frustrated, but the real blow came when industry insiders began questioning whether Zegler was worth the drama. Rumors are now circulating that her controversies have made her a liability, with some projects quietly dropping her name from consideration. There are whispers about her being difficult to work with, and Disney, known for its tightly controlled brand image, has been conspicuously quiet in defending her. Unlike other stars who weather controversies with well-crafted apologies, Zegler's attempts to smooth things over have only fanned the flames. Her apology for her political remarks was widely criticized as insincere, further souring public perception. In an industry where likability is key, Zegler's rapid fall is becoming a cautionary tale for young stars navigating fame in the social media era. Studios invest millions in talent who can sell movies, not controversy, and Zegler's growing reputation as a PR risk is making her an increasingly unattractive option. As one producer reportedly said, "Why risk someone who brings baggage when there are so many talented actresses ready to go?" Faces a larger issue, a tarnished image in an industry built on likability. Fans who once supported her are tiring of her combative tone and lack of accountability, while industry leaders are wary of someone who can't avoid controversy. Over the past few months, Zegler's relationship with Disney has been on shaky ground, with constant controversies surrounding her. Her personal life has also become a topic of public interest, particularly after speculation about her relationship with her Romeo and Juliet co-star Kit Connor. After Rachel posted pictures with Kit on social media, rumors quickly spread that they were dating. Zegler shut down the gossip, insisting they were simply colleagues and friends, but this only added fuel to the fire. Zegler's political views have also drawn significant criticism. After the 2024 presidential election controversy, she caught the attention of Megyn Kelly, who publicly suggested Disney reconsider their casting choice. Kelly criticized Zegler's divisive rhetoric, suggesting that Disney might want to rethink its decision to cast her in Snow White. Insiders now say that Disney executives are concerned about how Zegler's controversies might affect the film and Disney's image overall. As of now, however, Zegler remains in the role, and Disney has not made any official statements regarding her casting. Hollywood loves a good comeback story, but redemption is never guaranteed, especially when bridges have already been burned. If Zegler hopes to salvage her career, she will need more than just an apology. She must convince fans and filmmakers alike that she has learned from her mistakes and can focus on the work rather than the drama. Right now, though, her career is looking less like a fairy tale and more like a cautionary tale about how quickly Hollywood can turn its back on you. As Snow White inches closer to release, the damage is undeniable. Zegler's comments, combined with Disney's questionable creative decisions, have turned what should have been a celebration of a beloved classic into a textbook example of how to alienate an audience. What began as excitement has spiraled into backlash, with fans questioning whether Disney even understands what made its stories magical in the first place. For Disney, the stakes are huge. This isn't just another remake. It's a test of whether the company can still connect with its audience or if it has strayed too far from its roots. As the dust settles, the controversy surrounding Snow White is a PR headache and a reflection of the widening gap between Hollywood and the audience it seeks to entertain. Perhaps the real takeaway is that Snow White is no longer just a fairy tale. It's a mirror. Whether Disney likes what it sees is another story entirely.